Let me show you how to make a fabric bookmark that also holds your pens as well. It's a really clever 2-in-1. Now this quick and easy sewing project is perfect for your journals, notebooks and diaries, and it's also a great gift. Let me show you how to make it with step-by-step instructions. So for the fabric bookmark, you're going to need 2 pieces of fabric that measure 8 inches by 3 inches. Then we're going to need a piece for our pocket, and that measures 10 inches by 3 inches. A piece of elastic at 13 inches, and this is 3/4 of an inch wide. It's quite wide elastic. Then we're going to need some fusible fleece. Now for the bookmark, these pieces are 7.5 inches by 2.5 inches. They're actually just 1/2 inch smaller than our bookmark size. And then we're going to need a little bit of fusible fleece for our pocket, and that measures 4.5 inches by 2.5 inches. I've taken now 2 pieces of fabric for our main part of the bookmark, and I've faced them right sides down, so the right side of the fabric is facing down. Then what I'm going to do is take my fusible fleece, and with the bumpy side, that's the side with the glue on it, I'm going to face that down onto the wrong side of the fabric, and I want to pop it in the center. So I've got about 1/4 of an inch around all the edges, and then when I'm happy that's in place, I'll just press, and we really want it to adhere to the fabric. And then I will just flip it over to the other side and give it a press on this side. Okay, and when we're happy that that's stuck to our fabric, I'll take our second piece and do exactly the same. So then I'm just going to set those 2 pieces aside. I'm going to take my pocket piece and I'm going to fold that in half so the wrong sides are facing each other. I'm going to line up the edges, especially this bottom edge here, give it a finger press, and then when I'm happy it's folded in half nicely, all the edges are lined up, I'm going to give that a press. Then I'm going to open it up, take that smaller piece of fusible batting and place that on so I've got the edge lined up right where that fold is, and then it's about 1/4 of an inch all the way around, and then I'm going to press. I'm just going to flip it over to the back and press it on the back. Then what I'm going to do is close it up again where we had that original fold we did and just give it a quick press. Now we're just going to sew a top stitch along this folded edge. I'm going to sew with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm using my left compensating foot, which is a special foot I can get from my Juki TL sewing machine. Use whatever guide you need to do exactly the same, and it doesn't have to be exactly 1/8 of an inch. We just want to do a nice top stitch which is decorative. I'm going to stitch at stitch length 3 and I'm using wonderful confetti thread. I'm going to start on the very edge and then come along to the other side. Cut my thread, and there we have it. So now with one of our main bookmark pieces, we're just going to turn that over so that the right side is facing us, and if you've got 2 pieces and one is nicer than the other, use your nicer piece now because this is going to be the front of our bookmark. And if it's directional, make sure it's sitting in the direction you're happy with. Then we're going to take our pocket and pop that on top, and we're going to line it up on the bottom edge here and on the side edges. Then we're going to take our elastic and I'm going to eyeball the center. If you don't want to eyeball the center, you could fold the pocket in half and finger press to get a mark for the center. But I'm just going to pop it where I think looks like the center, and that looks pretty good to me. And then when I'm happy, I'm going to pop a pin in. I want to pop the pin in through all the layers to keep it all together. And then we're going to do the same at the top. Now I'll just turn this around. We want to make sure that the elastic's not twisted, because what we're going to do is we're going to pin it here and then do a stay stitch. So we want to make sure it's not twisted like that, because then it's just not going to sit right on our book. So bring it out flat and then lift it up carefully, and then find the center here again and then pop a pin in. Now I'm just going to do a stay stitch at the top and the bottom of our elastic. So I have actually changed my foot for the next step, but don't worry about that. We just want to sew along this edge, and again, probably at about a 1/8 of an inch. We don't want to be able to see this when we turn our bookmark right sides out. It's just to keep it in place when we're sewing everything together. I'm not worrying about a back stitch. I'll cut my thread and do exactly the same on this side. Okay, now our elastic's secure. Let's do our next step. So now we've got our elastic attached, what I'm going to do is just fold it down so that it's not in the way. I'm just going to give it a finger press. I want it to sit just like that. Then we're going to take our second main fabric piece for our bookmark and place that right sides together so everything's inside there. We're going to line up all the edges, and then when we're happy, we're going to pop a few pins in to keep it all in place. I like to always start with the corners first. And do the sides. So now what we're going to do is mark our opening. Now we want it on the side here away from our pocket. So I'm going to start it right where our pocket ends and then just about ½ an inch down from that corner. So I can see that my pocket ends here. So I'm just going to mark right there. And then we're going to start it maybe say ½ an inch down. We want to be able to still get a good corner, the integrity of the corner, but we want the opening as big as we can get it to get everything turned right sides out at that point. So now we're going to start here, go all the way around and stop here. So I've got my 1/4 inch foot on. To get my 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm stitching at stitch length 2 so it's nice and compact, and I'm going to start right where that mark is. Lower my foot, I'm going to go forward a few stitches, and then I will do a back stitch because I find when you turn things right sides out it tends to pull at those stitches, and that just makes it a little bit more secure. Now I'm going to go all the way around the edge till I get to that second marking. Removing the pins as I need to. When I come up to the corners, I'm just going to do my best guess at about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure my needle's down, lift my foot up and turn, and then carry on. So just coming up to that second mark, I'm going to come right up to it, and then I'll do a back stitch again. Cut my thread. Now I'm just going to cut the excess fabric off all 4 corners, just being careful not to cut those stitches. Now I'm going to find my opening, and I'm going to grab the elastic and I'm going to pull it through, and we're going to turn it right sides out. And what I find the easiest way to do this is pull that elastic as far as I can, and then the bottom of our bookmark here, I'm just going to give that a push through too. Now it is a little bit fiddly. Oh, and then when we can see it pulling coming through, I just give that elastic another tug, and then we can see we've got our bookmark shape there. I'm going to take a point turner, you can use something similar, and I'm just going to make sure it's sitting all nicely, especially in those corners there. I'm being firm but not too firm, because you can push too hard and then accidentally go through your fabric. And then I'm just going to run it up and down those seams so they're sitting really nicely, and then let's give it a press. So I'm just going to find my opening and fold that in about a 1/4 inch because that was our seam allowance. And then I'm just going to make sure it looks like it's sitting really nicely, like the opening was never there, and when I'm happy I'll give that a press. And then I'll give the rest of the bookmark a press too. We want to make sure all these seams are rolled out nicely and sitting really nicely. And then we can just give it a press on the back too. Okay, now we're going to do a top stitch around the whole edge, which is decorative, but also closes up our opening. So just where that opening is, I will pop a pin in to make sure it's sitting all nicely for when we sew around the edge. And now it doesn't actually really matter where you start. I'm going to start on the bottom edge here, and I'm stitching at stitch length 3 because it's more decorative. And I'm using my left compensating foot again to get that 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, but just use whatever guide you'd like to. And now I'm just going to sew all the way around until I get back to where I started. Do keep an eye on your elastic here and make sure you're not sewing it into your bookmark, because it would be very easily to end up in a right royal pickle. So I'm just holding it out of the way as I sew around. And now I've come back past where I started. I will just do a back stitch and then cut my thread, and then I'll trim the loose threads there. So I've got this standard size exercise book here. I'm just going to pop my bookmark on it. Isn't that cute? So you're never going to forget your pens again. And then we can pop our pens in. And you can have a play with the size that you make your bookmark. I wouldn't go any longer personally, but definitely you could go wider or skinnier. And depending on the size of your notebook, you might want to have a play around with the length of your elastic. So I hope you liked this tutorial. I think I'll be making a whole heap for Christmas this year as gifts, and maybe you should join me too, because they're so much fun and they're so quick to make. Now, to get the cutting instructions, I'll put a QR code above that you can scan, and I'll also put a link down in the description below. Now, do me a favor, if you like this tutorial, please hit the like and the subscribe button. It really helps me out. And if you'd like some other small sewing project ideas for gifts, I'll put my link above with my top playlist. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.